Well, greetings and salutations, test takers. This is the Series 7 Guru coming to you from my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas. Tell me what series exam you're taking, where you're joining us from. We're here every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Las Vegas time. So if you miss it, the replays are available as a podcast. Just wanted to say attitude of gratitude. It's hard to believe. I never in my wildest dreams, when I started the channel, we were going into our 4th year. So what's that? Over a million per year we're picking up in views. And we have over 1 million hours of watch time. Just incredible. So thank you so much for your support of the channel. What contributes most to the channel's growth is pretty simple. Test takers who pass their test and think we made a contribution, which I hope we did, and referrals, people who tell other people about the channel. So I'm not one of those guys who is an askhole, ASKHOL. I don't ask people to like and subscribe and share. I just assume that we do a good job on the channel. Those relationships will take care of themselves. So thank you so much. If you do have a question, the format for that, so I can pick it out of the chat more readily, is to put SIE or Series 7, whatever the exam. Sometimes I know by the context of the question what exam you're taking. So, for example, Trevor had a question that I answered in chat about the dollar, and that's most certainly a 65 because that only comes up, that kind of a question, on the 65. But a lot of it does overlap, and it's helpful if you tell me what exam so I can tell you, at what depth you need to know it, because, at some exams you need to know it with more depth or less depth. And so certainly, if you think about it, it's not a mandatory. It also lets you then chat amongst yourselves with victorious test takers and people in a similar situation without me stepping on you and putting up a comment that isn't meant for the public. Remember, when I do put comments up, they are, people can see your stuff. So, be cognitive of that. The best free supplement to your paid study materials is my YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel is organized around series playlists. So what you would do is find your series exam, for example, SIE, and then you would see there's 3 playlists there. There's a playlist of lectures, a playlist of practice tests and questions, and a podcast playlist of episodes. I have those playlists in suggested watch order, and the videos within them are in suggested watch order, but it's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. If you're looking for a particular topic, then you should go to the channel search bar and put in accrued interest or margin or settlement or munis, whatever the case may be. And that particular comment will naturally appear all the content we have for that particular topic. So, I'm just trying to help you be a little more efficient in using the channel. If you're looking for a paid supplement, you have a discount code GURU15 for any Kaplan product or service. And I highly recommend the Kaplan Q Bank as a paid supplement. And then my buddy Brian, he's off doing other things this evening, but Brian is the Test Geek, and we have a 20% discount code for viewers at Test Geek, and that's Guru20. So if you're looking for that, we have a new community. We have our Reddit communities, but we also have a new Facebook community called Baby Brokers Doing Hat Tricks. Just passed over 300 members. Baby Brokers is a term of endearment for rookies in the securities industry, and a hat trick is 3 successes in a short time frame. So the idea here is you're taking your SIE, a 6, a 63 as a hat trick, or SIE 763 as a hat trick, or SIE 766. You get the general idea. So if you are interested in that Facebook page, go over there. We also have all of our Reddits available as well. We did have come up some questions. Somebody asked, Dean, can you answer a question about American depository receipts? And the answer is yes, I can answer questions about American depository receipts. ADRs are in almost every exam. I can't imagine any draw. I'm wishing for you a dream draw. Everything you studied shows up. And you go, gee, I don't know what the problem was. But every once in a while you get a face of death draw. And ADRs are issued by a U.S. depository bank. And the receipt is that there's X number of shares of that foreign security in the foreign branch of the domestic bank, right? So one would be, for example, Nestle. Nestle is a Swiss company. The depository bank is Citibank. And so in the Swiss branch, the Lake Geneva branch in Switzerland of Citibank, there's 1,000 shares of Nestle, of which I'm the beneficial owner. Now, this allows Nestle to tap the U.S. capital markets. But most importantly, as a test taker, what it allows me to do is more easily get exposure to foreign securities. Right? I could buy the foreign security in the foreign market, but if I buy Telefonos de Mexico, that used to be the monopoly phone carrier Mexico trading on the Mexican bourse. And if I buy the Mexican security in the Mexican market, I don't know what, settlement is it T plus whatever. I'm going to get an annual report in Espanol instead of Ingles. The accounts are going to be denominated in pesos. And if I buy the ADR, when Telefonos de Mexico was available as an ADR, the bank was Bank of New York. And so they're going to translate the accounts from Espanol to Ingles, from pesos to dollars. And why would I want to buy a foreign security or get exposure to a foreign security? So we said the ADR gives you ease of ownership, but I'm hoping that it has different correlation than my U.S. securities. So, in terms of portfolio management, adding additional diversification of my portfolio under modern portfolio theory, I'm looking for what's called negative correlation. I'm hoping that I have some securities that go the other way, right? And so you would buy that to do that. So, popular ones would be Nestle, I told you about. Toyota has that. Heineken. These are foreign securities that are traded in U.S. markets as a U.S. security issued by that domestic bank. Okay, so test question number one is ADRs can best be characterized as, and you can say foreign securities traded under a domestic market. And then that follows that that's easier than buying the foreign security in the foreign market. The second test question is you have currency risk. If the underlying business is conducted in the foreign currency, for example, in my example, Telefonos de Mexico, they're collecting the phone bills in pesos. And so it used to take 10 pesos to get a buck. It's recently been 20 pesos to get a dollar. So my dividend got cut in half. Right. And so you do have foreign currency risk. You're getting paid in US dollars, but we still have to turn the pesos or Swiss francs or Japanese yen into dollars. So you have that currency risk. That is very testable to know that you still have the currency risk. Very low probability question, very low probability. But, countries of origin, don't you like that? The Republic of Mexico or the Kingdom of Norway, whatever the case may be. A lot of them have foreign withholding tax, so maybe it's like 15% by international treaty, right? So I'm supposed to receive $1,000 in dividends from my ADR, but the country of origin kept 15%. It would always be 15%. Anyways, in this example, I'm going to get $850. And then the idea is, what do I do on my tax return? What I do is I claim the entire $1,000, and I take a credit, a dollar for dollar whack out of my tax bill for the foreign withholding tax in this example of 15%. So I claim the entire 1,000. And I take a credit for 150 for whatever the country of origin kept. All right, so that's pretty much what you need to know about ADRs for all the various exams. Another thing that came in, you can always ask questions or send them to me before we start the live stream Q&A. You can do that by just sending an email to livestream@guruexecprep.com. And the other one that came up is overbought and oversold. Now, overbought and oversold, I think, are primarily more test prep vendor questions, and they actually show up on the actual exam. But overbought and oversold are technical terms for technical analysis, right? And overbought is going to be bearish. And the reason it's bearish is overbought means we've run out of buyers. At some point, there's no more buyers left, right? I'm joking about any kind of a thing besides stocks, right? We run out of buyers. I mean, the Adelson family just paid, $3 billion for the Dallas Mavericks. How many people can come up with $3 billion to buy an NBA team? At some point we run out of people with $3 billion in stocks, right? What we mean here is how much green ammunition's left. NVIDIA is nearly tripled in value. It has $3 trillion in market cap. And, if I'm a technical practitioner, I might say NVIDIA is overbought. That means we're running out of buyers. The momentum is slowing, and we think it's going to be bearish. And oversold would be the opposite. Oversold would be bullish. That means we have so many people sellers that we're out of sellers anymore. There's no more sellers left, right? They've exhausted themselves. And since there's no more sellers left, then we should expect an upturn. So this is used in technical analysis and charts to determine whether we still have buyers left, more green ammunition on the sideline. Overbought means we do not. Overbought again is bearish, and then oversold would be bullish. Again, more of a test prep FINRA question than an actual, I think, test question itself. All right, so let me get to the comments and see where we're at on that. Oh, well, thank you so much. A $10 super chat. Woohoo! I will use that for an adult beverage. Celia was here early, so good evening to all. We start at 5 o'clock. She was here a little 10 minutes early, so that's fine. I usually, I'm getting backstage ready to rock and roll. So if you want to start early, maybe we should start at 4:45. I'm not opposed to that. You're going to get it out a little earlier. By the way, tonight we are doing a live stream overtime session where we have a whiteboard and we just bring up QIDs like Trevor had. And we do that. If you want to join that, that's at 6:15. We take a 15-minute break. We reconvene. And you can find the link to register for that at deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. I think, Trevor, I took care of that question, I think. Right? It's counterintuitive because initially you would think that we're importing more because the dollar is strong. And that's true, right? Because I like a strong dollar because I like to buy tequila and scotch. Scotch is, whiskey from Scotland. And I like to buy Cuban cigars. And so for me, a strong dollar is wonderful, right? Because I get to buy more things. But as I buy more things, I'm creating or contributing to the trade deficit. And at some point, the trade deficit becomes so large that our foreign friends don't want dollars, or if they do, they want more of them. So counterintuitive. What causes the trade deficit is the strong dollar. And then eventually, the cycle, the ebb and flow goes back the other way. Hi, Dean, taking my third attempt next month. Wanted your feedback on my study plan. Like, Christopher, I don't know what your study plan is. Using Kaplan, there we go. Added TC Test Exam Center. I don't know what the TC Test Exam Center. Live class, I love it. Taking it off, I think that's a great study plan. I think it's very difficult. I don't know, Christopher, if you told me what exam you're taking. But, we have part-time test takers and we have full-time test takers. And if you're a part-time test taker, it's really hard to carve out the necessary time. And so I like, Christopher, if you are a part-time test taker, that you said, okay, I'm going to carve out a week from work to just focus on my exam. I'm hoping that's the week prior to your exam. I'm going to carve out some time to go to a live class, because as much as you think you're going to be spending 8 hours studying this stuff, you're not. You're going to spend like 6 hours studying and 2 hours. Oh my God, I hope I don't fail. So one great thing about class is that that you're going to be there and doing the test-related stuff for 8 hours. I also like that, Christopher, because it stretches your mind a little bit. I find that if you go to an 8-hour class, then you're doing a 2-hour study block. It doesn't seem as long. And it, also helps you stretch your mind in terms of the exam itself. So I'm a big fan of carving out that time. And then remember, sometimes you just got to really, get rid of people who are energy vampires in your life and aren't contributing to moving your study plan forward, right? So, some people are forces for good, some not so much. So third attempt is serious, as Christopher knows, because the third attempt means if you don't get it done this time, you have to wait 6 months. And that's a real downer, Debbie, real downer to have to do that. So Christopher, I also don't know what your 2 previous scores are, and that would be helpful. So I don't know if we're, I usually say, like I had somebody the other day and their first score was a 55. I said, well, let's just pretend that never happened. That was a drive-by. I mean, you went into the cave to slay the dragon and you got smoked before you even saw it. Her second exam was a 60 plus. Now that we can work with. We need to overlearn everything. So I also would be interested in what your 2 scores are. Again, you don't have to share. Remember, you're in an open forum here, so you may not want to share your scores, but that would be helpful. You can certainly send that to me at Dean at guruexamprep.com, and I'd be interested, Christopher, to know what those marks are. Bon chance. Good luck, everyone. Right on. In your tequila example, I usually use tequila when I'm talking about exchange rates, right? So, in my example, a $40 bottle of tequila with 10 pesos to the dollar, with 20 pesos dollars becomes a $20 bottle of tequila. What a deal, right? And Americans imported, I think last year, $350 million worth of tequila. right? So that is a debit to the balance of trade. We give our Mexican friends the dollars, they give us the tequila. And so that dollar is strong, meaning Dean's going to buy more stuff, right? If it's weak, right, that means, again, the U.S. exports become more competitive and imports become less competitive. So that's kind of how that works. And there's my answer in the chat. Yeah, that's right. Dean and Brian, Shannon, taking the 65 on July 10th for the second time. 85 is great. The only time that's not great is, very, very rarely, Shannon, very rarely. Statistical anomaly. Very rarely. Sometimes we get people who do everything we've asked them to do and get the scores think reflect success, and then they miss the mark. And when that happens, it's usually because they've memorized questions and answers. I had a guy, we did shared screen practice test today. I don't know if he's going to give me permission to put it up and share. And he was really down on himself. And I didn't think he had any reason to be down on himself. I said, listen, be gentle on yourself. I mean, you got a 77 and you were articulating a lot of stuff. And I love that 77. I prefer that 77 you got to an 85 where somebody just going B, D, C. And I think that 77 reflects that. So I think you're right where you need to be. 85 is fantastic. I think mid 70s are okay, just as long as you're not memorizing questions and answers. And that's one of the reasons I really believe in getting a Kaplan QBank as a supplement, because, some of the other test prep vendors, their QBanks are a little weak. What I mean by weak is depth. They don't have as much depth. And so it's easier to memorize their questions and answers. So, if you add a Kaplan QBank to your mix, it's going to be hard to memorize 3,600 questions, for example, on the 7. 66. There you go. So 63 on the 66. Well, maybe we should take the 63 and get a 66. I like that. I want you to be, I would like you to crack 70. I have somebody I'm working with this week, and he's, he's working hard. He's dedicated. He's disciplined. He's organized. And we haven't cracked 70 yet. We got about 10, he's about 10 days out. And I said, I would like us to crack a 70. Now be careful what I'm about to say. I've had many people get below 70 and still pass. If I'm teaching a class at with a corporation, and corporations, major broker dealers have corporate trainers, and so let's say Dean has been brought in to teach the class, and this is typical. I work with the corporate trainer. I'd lead the class, and then we do the class. After the class, we do a practice test. We do class Monday through Thursday, practice test Friday. The people are testing Monday, and if we have 20 people in that class, and I go to the corporate trainer here recently, and I said, hey, listen. We had 12 people of our 20 in our cohort who scored over 70. I think they're fine. They're going to pick up some questions. They're going to, continue to work. I think they're all going to pass. Of the 8 people, we have 6 that got between 60 and 70. 6 that got between 60 and 70. And I think we're going to lose 3 of those folks statistically. We're going to lose 3 of the 6, half of them. There's no reason for that. I mean, if they stay dedicated, disciplined, organized, if they were confident and didn't go wobbly. I had a guy on social media today, and I'm more concerned about going wobbly because he got below 70. And, if he continues to work, it shouldn't be a problem. But, they get down. She goes, which 3 are they? I said, well, if I knew that, we'd save them. We don't know which 3. It's just statistics. But I was very proud. All of them passed. None of them got wobbly. They kept working. They finished strong. We went 6 for 6 on the test takers that were between 60 and 70. We had 2 test takers that were below 60 on the practice test. And that's just really, really difficult, because if you're below 60, like that first score you got, Christopher, when you're below 60, that means you don't know what question you're being asked, and you don't know what the answers being offered to you are. I had a guy who had booked a tutoring session. I got on the tutoring session with him, and I said, well, listen, I got to give you some tough love here. Where you're at right now, you're not ready for tutoring. You don't have enough base knowledge to even know what you're being asked and to know what the questions you're being answers being offered to you. I mean, if you want me to teach you all of this in a tutoring format, that's fine, but it's going to be very expensive. We usually expect that you come with some base knowledge, and then we're going to tutoring will be used to plug the gaps. Hey, I'm open to whatever you want to do, but I would suggest we reschedule this when you've done a little more work laying that base. And so he went for that, and I thought it was nice. He responded positively. What I mean by that, next time, Christopher, when I queued him up and he showed up on the Zoom link, he said, Dean, I'm halfway there. And I go, what's that mean? He goes, I now know what the question being asked is. I'm still not quite sure what the answer is, but I'm very clear about the question. I go, well, okay, I'll take that. That's exactly right. That's really important on that 66, for example, because I joke about the 66 and 65, Christopher. I think of it as kind of like a play. And if you go to see a play on Broadway, they give you what's called a playbill. And it tells you the cast of characters. And every once in a while, you're watching the play. You go, who's that guy again? And you go back to the playbill. Oh, okay, that's Iago or that's whoever. And sometimes the playbill will have the acts and the scenes that kind of keep you on track. And boy, on 65, 66, I think it's so important to know the cast of characters. I was doing a session today, and you got to be clear. Are we asking about a broker dealer? Are we asking about an investment advisor? Are we asking about the issuer? Are we asking about an agent of a broker dealer, investment advisor rep? So that could be a real challenge on those NASA exams. 65, greeting from Florida. Greetings. Yeah, Trevor, I figured that was 65 based on that question because that's a 65 type question. All right, McLean, sending some love out to her fellow test taker, Shannon. Our weekly live streams are about helping you with content, certainly, but it's also about fun and fellowship. I mean, since COVID, I started the channel when the pandemic hit because I thought, man, I wonder if we're ever going to get to teach a live class again. And I don't even know if people are going to be able to go to live classes again. And, in the old days, pre-COVID, for example, if you had a rough day, maybe one of your fellow test takers would say, hey, why don't we have lunch together? Or, why don't we go have an adult beverage? Somebody could buck you up. And then when you're testing by yourself, it's kind of hard to buck yourself up, right? And say, okay, that was a bad day. You got to let it go. So if you join us on Tuesday, sometimes it's just fun and fellowship and knowing there's other people out there that are trying to accomplish the same thing you are. I know we have some regulars, and I told that guy, just teasing him, that I was going to ban him from social media. I said, listen, I have never, ever banned somebody from our participation in our channels or our Reddits or our Facebook group for having negative vibes, but I think I'm going to do it with you. Because, man, the guy was so negative. I said, listen, our communities are about uplifting, not about, I think what was he was telling, the brokerage industry is oversaturated. How can you make a living? And I don't think I should be doing this. I go, man, take your stinking thinking elsewhere, man. That's not what we're about. There you go. Third time is a big one. So, all right, third time. That third time is really key because I'm dating myself, but in the old days. So, the old days. For example, I went to take my driver's test, and, she said, do you want the booklet to study? And I said, no. I said, I'm a pretty good test taker. So, just give me the test and, I'll see, how I do without studying. Anyways, I missed it by one question, and I did exactly what I tell you guys not to do. I changed an answer. I changed it from the right answer to the wrong answer. I overthunk it. I outsmarted myself. Anyways, I said, is there a 30-day wait period? And she goes, what do you mean? I said, well, the exams I prepare people for, they have to wait 30 days before they can reattempt it. And she goes, well, no, you can take it again. I said, okay, well, give it to me again. I missed it again by one. I said, listen, how deep is the Q bank for this exam? And she goes, well, what do you mean? I said, I'm already seeing repeat questions and you're giving me the answer key. She said, well, Dean, there are 5 different versions of this driver's license test. Anyways, there was a guy next to me and he'd taken it twice. I said, hey, my friend, between the two of us, we have 4 of the 5 potential draws. I suggest we form a syndicate. I suggest we pool our resources here and go outside and, review our answers and questions. And she said, are you guys going out there to study? I said, well, I guess you can call that studying if you want to call that studying. We'll call it studying. Came back, took that 5th time and aced it. And prior to, God, this is 15, 20 years ago, you didn't have the 30-day wait period. And I literally would tell you, Lauren, if you had a high 60, to just queue it up again. And I would tell you just to stay down there until you passed. Right. And so I guess I told too many people that. So now we make you go home and think about it and wait 30 days and then come back. So and then that third time is 6 months away. Right. So, all right, victorious test taker. Woohoo. If you're new, we ring the bell for Vic Testing Victories. That comes from It's a Wonderful Life. It's if you haven't watched that movie, it's the greatest movie ever made on banking. Jimmy Stewart is a banker and he loses his reserve requirement and he can't open the bank because he doesn't have enough liquidity. to meet the everyday demands for banking. Anyways, he's thinking about killing himself, and he meets a would-be angel. He's not an angel yet. His name is Clarence. And, every time in the movie a bell goes, he goes, that's an angel getting his wings. And so our version of that is for our test takers. So, Richard, congratulations. I don't know what the next testing victory is for you. Maybe you're just taking your SIE, but most of us would have a next leg of our testing journey would be a 6 or a 7. And I would tell you, Richard, that I hope that you didn't just barely eke by on that SIE. I'm hoping you really kind of kicked butt on that, because if you overlearn the SIE, it sets you up so well for not going into your 6 wobbly or your 7. It'll pay huge dividends from you. I think you can almost pass out of a 6 with an SIE high score. We don't tell you what your score is, so that's based on how you felt, whether you aced it or not. And if you're going into your 7, that foundation you laid with your SIE will be very helpful. So if you're joining us and you're taking your SIE, that's the one exam where I say don't try and just pass. Try and really, pass strongly so you don't go wobbly into the second leg, right? Because you don't want to go 1-1. You want to go, 2-0 and then be working for 3-0. 63. So 63 means you're an agent of the broker dealer, right? So with a 663 or 763, you're an agent of the broker dealer. 63, what's big there, Ray? I like that. Is that Ray like in Espanol? You're the king. King I do. I like it. One of my favorite cigars, Ray, is El Rey del Mundo, king of the world. That's a great full-bodied Nicaraguan cigar. Anyways, Ray, make sure you pay attention to the unethical business practices, right? That's big, and disclosures. So make sure you pay attention to that on your 63. 63 is kind of a challenge because there's not a lot of performance opportunities. So you don't get, when you think about, it's what I call test questions. So, on a 7, you get 125 performance opportunities. So, you can miss more things is the point. Series 24, General Securities Principal in the house. Jacob, are you on our Reddit? I hope so. We've had some good testing victories over there on our Reddit. We have 3 Reddit communities. What I like about the Reddits, Jacob, is you can remain anonymous, particularly as it relates to 24, because sometimes, Jacob, somebody will put something in that 24 chat. Everybody in the Reddits knows that it's me, Series 7 Gurus, Dean Tenney. But sometimes people put a question, and I'm like, oh, man, I'm so glad that we don't know what firm you're from or who you are. But we've had some really good testing victories over there in our Reddit. So if you're, Jacob, not a member of our R Series 720 or R Series 24 Reddit, I highly recommend it as our sister communities. The sister communities are also part of Guru Nation, so to speak. And we have 3 Reddits. We have R Series 7. That subreddit is for SIE and 7. We have R Series 66. That subreddit is for Series 63, 65, and 66. And then we have a subreddit R Series 24. That's for 9, 10s, and 24s. And as I mentioned, we also have a Facebook community. So those are all our sister communities. I don't do a whole lot in the community chat on the YouTube channel because, I told you I don't want to be an asshole, and I don't want to be kind of like dinging you with notifications, that God knows I put out enough content. So I'm not quite sure people want to be getting bing, 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 bing. So if you want more, join us in one of our sister communities, and we're there all the time, and there's a lot of interaction going on. Micheline, after-tax yield. Well, after-tax is exactly what it means. So truth in labeling. So I'll just say we're considering a 10% corporate bond, Micheline. A 10% corporate bond. So you should know that 10% is based on par. And so 10% on a $1,000 bond means each bond is going to pay me $100. You further should know that corporate bonds are taxable. So let's say that Dean is in a 30% tax bracket. Taxes are the price you pay for civilization. So the U.S. government is going to confiscate, I'm joking, is going to take 30% of my $100. Right? 30% of my $100 is $30. So after the government takes my 30, what I'm left with is $70. And so $70 on a $1,000 investment is a 7% after-tax yield. So that's one way to do the after-tax yield, is to simply take away whatever money is being taxed, taken away through taxes. Another way to do it is to take my 10% yield and times it by 100% minus my tax bracket. So here 100% would be minus 30 is 70%. So I would take the 10 times 70% of 10, and I come up with 7% as my after-tax yield. That is most certainly taxable and tax-free equivalent yields, McLean, are not only on the 65. For those of you who are taking the any test, that's on the SIE, that's on the 7, it's on the 65, it's on the 66. So you should be prepared to do taxed after-tax yield, right? That's what we just did. And you should also be able to take a tax-free yield and figure out what taxable equivalent is. How is the 66? So love life lift. Christopher wants to know how the 66 is. She's taking it on Monday. Joint tenancy. You definitely got to be able to contrast, McLean, tenants in common with joint tenants with rights or survivorship. Again, this is testable for everyone. So with joint tenants with rights or survivorship, both parties can act in the account. It doesn't have to be a husband and wife, but let's say it's Mr. and Mrs. Tenney, joint tenants with rights or survivorship. The decedent share, very testable, goes to the surviving party, and the surviving party can continue to transact. Tenants in common, there's a fractional interest, 70-30, 50-50, whatever the case may be. And the decedent share, very testable, goes to their estate or beneficiary. And so tenants in common, if somebody dies, it's going to be a mess because we had to freeze the account, and then we have to wait for the proper legal documentation. So very testable on all exams to be able to contrast joint tenants with rights or survivorship with tenants in common. Contrast. How are things different? How are things different? Studying the 65, you had said to read each chapter. There you go. I did say that. I can't tell you, Ryan, you got to read the book. You got to read the book cover to cover. I had a guy today. I thought this was pretty good. He did. I told you I was very pleased with his performance. I was more pleased with his performance than he was. And I was, I was telling him, gee, I don't know why you're beating yourself up. I think your performance was well. His study plan was very good. And what he told me he did, Ryan, and he read the book, but he did it, watch the videos first and then read the book, which I thought was kind of okay, right? Because he's putting a dent in the reading. No, I don't care what test prep vendor you got it. That license exam manual, every one of them from the test prep vendor is not light reading. It's pretty dense. So then he said he'd read, and then as I said, you do a custom quiz, and then you move on. Now, remember, when you move on from chapter 1 or unit 1, you move on to unit 2, you do the same, rinse and repeat. But remember, unit 2, you don't move on to unit 3 after you finish unit 2 and you do your quiz. Then you do a custom quiz, Ryan, of unit 1 and unit 2. You combine them. You keep bringing up the caboose, so to speak. So then when you get on to unit 3, you do your unit 3 reading, you do your quiz, you get 75. You don't move on to 4. You now do a custom quiz with questions from unit 1, 2, and 3, so on and so forth until you get to the end, right? And then you should do a cumulative practice test and see how you're doing on the entire body of information. So yes, so should you stack every prior chapter or the previous one? No, the entire chapter. So I hope I answered that, Ryan. Not the prior chapter. Cumulative custom quiz on every chapter you've worked your way through, right? So custom quiz on 1, 2, 3. You do 4, 75%. Custom quiz 1, 2, 3, 4. You do 5. Custom quiz on 5. Custom quiz 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 5, and 6, and you move on. So that's how I recommend it. But remember, it's always a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. I would suggest, though, I had this guy I was working with, and he has his own way for doing options. I said, that's fine. I said, lots of different ways to do options. And as long as you're getting the right answer. I said, but you're not getting the right answer. So the method you're using isn't working. So, at that point, you need to, find somebody to follow who, has a method that's working for you, because having your own method is fine as long as it works, but yours isn't working. Right. So it's just a suggestion. I think it's a good suggestion at that. Hey, Dean, studying for a Series 7 exam in a month. I'm concerned about missing out on information, so I take a lot of notes. Well, the problem with taking a lot of notes, beware of the grows, is it slows you down. So again, it's a buffet. When I say read the book cover to cover, I'm just going to tell you what Dean does. I like to read when I'm studying some new topic of information. I like to read the book cover to cover and as close to one setting as possible. I just want to see what the thing looks like cover to cover. I'm not taking notes. I'm not highlighting. I've had people come to class and they've highlighted the whole book, and I go, well, maybe you need a different color highlighter and go back and do that again. So I like to read the book cover to cover and as close to one setting, and then go back And as I'm doing each chapter, this kind of ties in with what Ryan was saying, right? Then what I like to do is now read that chapter in depth and take notes and do my quizzes. So that would be my recommendation, right? So my recommendation is, don't immediately start taking notes, because when people told me they're struggling to get through the book, it's usually because they're trying to rewrite the book, and you're not going to know what's important that first time through anyways. I mean, you're not informed enough to know what you should be highlighting, and therefore I don't think highlighting and taking notes is important. If you get through it cover to cover and then you start doing your studying on that second time through, now you'll know, oh, I missed that the first time. Even when I'm tutoring somebody who's watched my videos, sometimes I'll get people who say, well, gee, why should I buy tutoring when your tutoring replays are free? I go, well, that's a good point. But a lot of times when I'm doing tutoring with somebody, they'll say, hey, Dean, I watched that video, but I still didn't get it till just now on the whiteboard. So that's how the reading goes too, right? You read it, you think you know why, that you understand it, but then you get a question and you don't, and then you got to go back. I'm studying option strategies right now. I love it. Well, in spreads, there's 8 things you got to know about a spread, Andrew. 8. I call it don't hate the 8. If you're new with us, Andrew, what I do is I link in the video description to videos that cover this area. And I have a video that I'll link for you called Don't Hate the 8. And so the 8 things you got to be able to do in a spread is you have to be able to identify the spread. Are you looking at a straddle? Are you looking at a combo? Are you looking at a spread? Spread means difference. And what you're spreading is the same type of contract. You're spreading the same type of contract. You're going long and short a call or long and short a put. And even if identifying the spread wasn't testable, I'm telling you it is. But even if it wasn't, I just told you it is. If you can't identify, you're just going to be staring at your screen and going, I don't know. So once you've identified it, the one you're going to encounter most on this test, Andrew, is a vertical or price spread. A vertical or high spread, price spread. That's the most common version, right? Where I sell a 40 call and I buy a 50 call. Horizontal and calendar spreads are the same thing. I have a video, again, I'll link to it, where I show you spreads missing premiums, and I show you why it's called horizontal or vertical, because that's how it lays out on your quote screen. If you're looking at a quote screen for what's called an option chain, a vertical spread on your quote screen looks like this. A horizontal looks like this on your quote screen. And the other one we have is diagonal. Diagonal is when everything's different, the strike and the month and all that. Counter spreads horizontal are the same. And then the next thing you got to be able to do, number 2, I said, don't hate the 8. There's 8 things, is you have to determine whether it's debit or credit. Are you buying the spread, debit spread, money out? Are you selling the spread, credit spread, money in? And that's really kind of a key piece of the analysis, because what a lot of stuff flows from that. In other words, you should know, Andrew, that if you buy an option position, your loss is the premium. And if you sell an option position, basic or advanced, that's your gain. So you got to determine debit or credit. Third thing you do is exercise or expire. In a debit spread, we want the contracts to be exercised. Credit spread, we want to expire so we could go neener. We get to keep the money, right? Widen or narrow. That's the hardest part to get. Widen or narrow refers to the spread either getting larger or smaller, because that's what the spread is, the difference, right? I say, what's the spread on the game tonight? That's the difference. And some people want it within the spread. Some people want outside the spread. Debit, exercise, widen goes together all the time, right? So you're wide like Dean, you need to exercise, right? Credit, expire, narrow goes together all the time. Credit has 6 letters. Expire has 6 letters. Narrow has 6 letters. So we identify it, debit or credit, exercise or expire, widen or narrow. I told you don't hate the 8. There's 8 things you got to know. You got to know max gain and max loss. All of the action, Andrew, takes place between the strikes. So as a test taker, a good test taking trick, if it's a 40 call and a 50 call, whatever the gain and loss are, they add up to 10. And I told you that the gain and credit spread is the credit and the loss and debit spread is the debit. I think that's easier, by the way, than memorizing the difference in the strikes minus the net debit or credit. That's just, mental mess, I think. And then we got to be able to do break even, test taking trick. That's item number 7. The break even is somewhere between the strikes. So you can eliminate any choices outside that range. Now, in my example, it's a 40 call and a 50 call. The break even is somewhere between 40 and 50. We have a memory aid device for that. Call add to the lower. For puts, subtract from the higher. We're going to add the net premium to the lower strike for call contracts, and push, put, subtract from the higher. And the last thing is bullish or bearish, and the greater premium dominates. So Andrew, how many spreads are you going to get? I don't know, but you're going to get at least 20 option questions, plus or minus 5. So what I mean by that is you could get 15, you could get 20, you could get 25. But options, if you can turn options into strength, you're in pretty good shape. I can't imagine you're not going to get at least a couple spread questions, at least. Those are advanced option strategies. The two advanced option strategies you're accountable for are spreads and straddles. So, and I personally think the most difficult question, Andrew, is spreads missing premiums. And there we have a mantra. So the mantra, when you're missing premiums, repeat after me, is lower. I'll just make a banner here. Lower, higher, longer. Lower, higher, longer. So when you have a spread and you're missing premiums, Andrew, lower, higher, longer. Lower strike call contracts always have greater premiums. Lower strike call contracts always have greater premiums. Now remember, the reason that's helpful for two things. The greater premium dominates the position, right? So I would be using a 40 and a 50 call. The 40 call is going to have the greater premium. So, if I buy it, it's a debit spread. If I sell it, it's a credit spread. Lower, higher, longer. Lower strike call contracts always have greater premiums. Lower, higher, longer. Higher strike put contracts always have greater premiums. So if I'm looking at a 50 put, a 40 put, that 50 put is going to have the greater premium. And again, that's going to be the dominant leg in the position. So lower, higher, longer. Higher strike put contracts always have greater premium. So again, the greater premium dominates. If I'm selling the 50 put, it's a credit put spread. If I'm buying the 50 put, it's a debit put spread. So that's important if we're missing premiums. And longer means longer term option contracts always have greater premiums. So you had brought up a calendar spread, right? So if I'm buying the Aprils and selling the Junes, that's going to be a credit spread. So the mantra is lower, higher, longer. Lower, higher, longer. All right, let's see, where am I at here? I think I shouldn't have done that because I just threw away I'm going to find you guys again. 65. I said that. Hi, Dean. Greetings from New Jersey. Greetings from New Jersey. There we go. So that's where we're at. Boom. Medina. Ooh, I like that name. Medina. Is it? I'm trying to remember. I apologize. But what, Mecca and Medina, right? I think didn't Muhammad, I think he started in Medina. He started as a capitalist, I think, in the city of Medina, I think. And then, there were people that were not big fans that I think were in Mecca. And then I think he went over there. So I don't know if you're named after the Arabian cities, but if you are, that's pretty cool. Anyways, greetings from New Jersey, 7 on Monday. So Medina, make sure that you get some rest on Sunday, right? You want to make sure you're well rested. So your timeline is kind of collapsing, not in a bad way, but your study plan is kind of like an option, right? We were talking to Andrew about options. Options are a wasting asset. Time value erodes. If you were going to trade options and work for me, Andrew, I'd make you write 1,000 times. Options are a wasting asset. Time value erodes. At expiration, an option contract is only worth its intrinsic value. If it has intrinsic value, the contract will be exercised. It has no intrinsic value to expire. So as you get closer to your test date, that's going to start collapsing. So you don't have a whole lot of time, Medina. I don't know what your practice test scores are, but if I were your accountability partner and you're testing Monday and this is Tuesday, I think we could do at least 3 more practice tests. Don't do any practice, more than 1 practice test a day. People drive me nuts. I don't know why people don't listen to me. No more than 1 a day because you got to remediate. I had somebody the other day, they did 4 in the day, and the 4th one, they went down in flames. And I go, why are you even doing that? That's not even a true mark. We're not taking practice tests to learn stuff. We're doing practice tests to take intellectual inventories of where we're at. So we kind of know on Monday whether Medina just needs to stick the landing. She's circling the airport and she's just got to stick the landing money, or she's still seat back, nose up, trying to get that plane off the ground. Right? So I would think 3 or 4. And if we get in that 70 range, we're where we need to be. So, it'll be over. And then, right, you can get on the next leg of your testing journey. We make our mark on Monday. Then you take 2-3 days to refresh and reset. And then you go right for your next testing victory, which would be a 63 or 66. So I like it, Medina. I like where you're at. What formulas? Well, I have a very popular video CC that I'll link to called Tips, Tricks, and Memory Aids for the Series 7. And I think it's a good jumping off point for a data dump sheet. But again, that would be up to you to create your own. I also have another video CC that I'll link to in the video description called All the Math You Need to Pass the Series 7. Please pay attention. All the math you need to pass the Series 7. You know, every once in a while, somebody sends me an angry, nasty comment. This isn't all the math on the Series 7. I said, I never said it was all the math on the Series 7. I said, it's all the math necessary on the Series 7. So I'll link to both those videos. Parity, you're definitely going to have to do. Current yield, you're definitely going to have to do. You can't be fumbling around with break evens. So I have 2 videos that I think would be very helpful in that regard for you, and I will link to them. Oh, it's tomorrow. Well, I think, CC, I think even tomorrow, I don't know what your plans are for this evening and if you're on the East Coast or West Coast, but CC, the one video I would highly recommend, I mean, all 3 of those I don't think would cause you any stress. Be a review. You know, the challenge is, you know, you do one of these videos and then all of a sudden you go, oh my God, I didn't know that. But I highly recommend, I have a video that you must watch called Series 7 in 60 minutes. And I specifically designed that for the night before or morning of. My goodness, who would have thunk it? That the SIE version has 175,000 views. And the Series 7 version has 100,000 something plus views, and was the inspiration for a lot of copycats, but the original is always better. Also, CC, check out the comments in that video. I think it's very uplifting. We have all kinds of victorious test takers circling back and putting in some there. So you don't have a lot of time, as I mentioned, if you're testing tomorrow. But I highly recommend at least knock out that Series 7 and 60-minute video. It's an hour, right? That's why it's called Series 7, 60 minutes. If you have time, if you like it, and it's not causing you to go backwards, then by all means, watch Tips, Tricks, and Memory Aids. That's about 30 minutes. That video came from, I used to do a lot of Merrill Lynch classes. And one of the last things Merrill Lynch gave them was, a night before kind of with me for last minute items. And so, that's kind of a video that I made based on what are some last minute kind of tips, tricks, and memory aids. And that would be a good thing to watch as well. And that's like, I think 40 minutes. That too has over 100,000 views. And then if you want to push it, I think it's pushing it to watch that all the math thing, because now you're in 3 hours, it's 8 o'clock, and you don't want to wear yourself out. Regulation M, Jen, I certainly can. So Regulation M is about 101, 102, and 103. And Reg M is about whether we're going to continue to make a market or whether we're going to choose to go passive, right? So we have different versions of Reg M, and it's about when we have a conflict of interest with our trading desk and our banking business, right? So under Reg M, we have 101. 101 is about the restricted period, about when I have to decide whether I'm going to continue to make a market in the security where we're doing a follow-on offering, or whether I want to go passive. If I choose to remain on the screen as a passive market maker, then there's rules about that, right? And then there's rules on 102 about whether we can buy the restricted stock. 103 is about the passive bid. It's very testable 24, Jen, to know that I can't be passive if I have the highest bid, right? So the passive bid under Reg M 103 has to be no higher than the highest independent bid or the last sale. And then again, I have to, I can't be more responsible for more than 30% of the average daily trading volume. The most important testable item, Jen, is about stabilization, and that's Rule 104. And that is very testable. Stabilization is a legal form of pegging. People forget that the Facebook IPO was sticky. IPO stands for either instant profit opportunity or it's probably overpriced. I'm joking. So it's either going to be hot or it's going to be sticky. Those are not test terms. Those are just, jargon in the securities industry. So, Michael Grimes is the Series 24 Gen for corporate finance in Silicon Valley for Morgan Stanley. And we have a firm commitment underwriting with Facebook. The syndicate has told Facebook that they're going to get $38 a share for that stock. And people forget, but it was wobbly. It wasn't flying off the shelf. And they were asking Zuckerberg about whether he was concerned about this thing not going from 38 to 45. And he said, well, no, I'm not concerned at all. The way I understand a firm commitment underwriting, that is the syndicate stock at 38, and what they do with it is their problem. See ya wouldn't want to be ya. The understanding is correct. So we have a stabilization agent, and what we're going to do is we're going to put in stabilizing bids at 38. So, you're watching the Facebook stock and you go, wow, it's odd, man. It's been trading at 38 for the last 3 days. On the third day, Michael Grimes came out and said, we are going to remove our stabilizing bid. And Facebook will now find its natural price. The syndicate lost $200 million in that Facebook IPO. And come to find out, the biggest syndicate member who created the part of the problem was UBS. Very testable. We can only use stabilizing bids in a firm commitment underwriting. The stabilizing bid can only be entered by one member of the syndicate. Very testable. It has to be in the prospectus. And it's better to be in the prospectus and not need it than need it and not have it. And so that is the biggest part of Reg M that is testable. And then Rule 105 is about covering short positions, where I'm actually making delivery to customers by shorting the securities and then using my green shoe. And the rule about the short sales is I can't short going into the offering. I can only short this to make delivery to customers, right? But I have an overallotment, very testable, of 15%, right? So Rule 105 says we can't establish short positions 5 days from the business days from the effective date. So I hope that was helpful. The biggest part of Reg M, as I mentioned, is stabilization. Is that it? If I got 2 super chats today, is that another $10? Woohoo! Or is that the same $10? I don't know. Ryan is I think I got 2 super chats today. I'm teasing, by the way. You don't have to. I should make a rule, Ryan, that if you give me a super chat, maybe you get to go to the front of the queue. I'm joking. Ryan, I've been very blessed today. Very blessed today. I think of myself as a retired stockbroker, and my friends make fun of me because I work harder than I ever did. I accidentally, gave myself a job. But Ryan, I charged $225 an hour for tutoring, and I did 10 hours today. So, well, that's pretty good money, even for a guy like Dean, who's pretty blessed. But I appreciate the $10 too. It's all money. It's all fungible. I'll put that into the kitty for our adult beverages. Sierra, I have had people tell me good things about that audiobook. I didn't know it existed until several months back. And yeah, I like it. I have podcast episodes, which you can listen to as well. Brian and I both did a Series 65 podcast series. It's available on the channel, and it's also available on Spotify. But I have heard good things about that book. I've never listened to it, so I don't want to pretend I have. I don't know which Kaplan instructor is the person reading the book, and that could be huge. Right? So, but I've heard good things. I don't know if anybody else in the chat has heard good things or actually bought one. Let's see or know what you thought about it. If you do buy that audiobook from Kaplan, remember you get a 15% discount on all Kaplan products, including the audiobook with Guru 15 at checkout. Federal regulations, well, Colby, it's not going to be material to your success. 91 questions are investment vehicles. So the biggest part of the test is, mutual funds, options, and muni bonds. That's 20, 25 plus on each of those. That's like 75 of the 91. The 2 major federal regulations, there's only 2 that are big. I mean, we have other ones, but they're not really big on the 7. The 2 big ones are 33 and 34. 33 and 34. So, Colby, I don't know if you know who was president in 33 and 34, but the president was President Roosevelt. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR. And all that legislation was called the New Deal. That means the old deal must have sucked. Right? And it did. Prior to the 30s, remember, we had the Roaring 20s. And prior to the Roaring 20s, we would say, hey, trust me, you'll love it. 33, you can get right by covering up the screen and saying, are they asking me about paper, prospectuses? 33. paper or prospectuses. 33, Colby says, if you're going to sell brand new securities to the public, very important, brand new securities to the public, you have to make a registration statement, hence the term registered securities. Right? So there are registered securities and unregistered securities, securities that have not been registered. Now, 33, test question, establish some safe harbors or exempt transactions where we're not going to make a registration statement. We're not going to enter in the cooling off period. We're not going to have red herrings. That whole process is very testable. Red herrings in 20 days and IOAs, non-binding, and tombstones, very testable. But even more testable are some of the safe harbors, Reg A, Reg D, Rule 147. These are what we call safe harbors or exempt transactions. And you definitely need to know, for example, Reg A, we can raise up to 75 million. Rule 147, an intrastate offering of securities. The issuer has to have 80% of business and assets within the state. We can only sell it to residents of the state. Reg D, a private placement. And those you need to know that, Colby, there's two. Reg D has two, 506B and 506C. 506B, I can have an unlimited number of accredited investors, but no more than 35 non-accredited. I can't solicit. 506C, I can have only accredited investors and institutional for both of them, but I can't have any non-accredited investors that I can solicit. 34, you can get right by covering up the screen and saying, they asked me about people and places. People and places. That's 34. A big part of 34 is when President Roosevelt changed our industry, created the SEC. When they created the SEC with 34, by the way, they were companion pieces of legislation. So we knew that when we passed 33, Congress was going to pass 34. But President Roosevelt made Joe Kennedy the first chairman of the SEC. And they said, how could you put a fox in charge of the hen house? Because Joe Kennedy was a big securities kind of fraud guy. He's, well, who better as a gameskeeper than a former poacher? He's going to know all the games. He's going to shut them down. So that was all that 33 is about people and places. The big part of 34 to know is, that our industry, again, unlike any other industry, is let the seller beware. We, the ones selling the security, have to make sure we do it correctly, right? That we've made no omissions of material facts. We haven't made any misrepresentations. The big part there is Reg T is a part of 34, and Reg T gave control of credit extension from broker-dealers to customers to the Federal Reserve Board. Prior to 34, I would loan you money to buy anything. You give me 10 grand, I'd loan you 90 grand. That was called the Roaring 20s. There was a crash. And so Reg T says, the Federal Reserve Board says how much you have to be at risk for initially, 50%. Reg T says the Federal Reserve Board can tell you that new issues are ineligible for purchase on margin, new issue 30 days. So, that kind of stuff, I agree with it. It doesn't really have a narrative thread to it, so to speak. So it's just a bunch of stuff. But if you miss your mark and you tell me it's because of federal regulations, I'm going to say, Colby, you had bigger problems. You had bigger problems. You're welcome. It looks like we're coming up on our hour. Very testable to be able to learn to contrast a traditional plain vanilla open-end mutual fund with an ETF, and then to be able to contrast an ETF with an ETN. So an exchange-traded fund, Lauren, is an equity investment. It's an equity investment. So for example, if you buy an ETF, there's a custodian who's holding the monies and securities, and that's not true of an ETN. Exchange-traded notes are debt instruments. So rather than actually owning the securities, what I do is I just say, Lauren, as a financial institution, we're not actually going to set up, an S&P 500 ETF where we have those stocks held by State Street, and there's, they're physically there. What we're going to do instead, Lauren, as a financial institution, is promise to match that return on an exchange-traded note. So if you buy $100,000 and the S&P 500 goes up 30%, we owe you 130 grand. And that's the test question. There's a default risk, right? Because depending on who the sponsor is, will depend on I can make good. The ETFs are not a debt instrument. ETNs are. That's a very testable distinction. Oh my God, Medina, I'm so tired of this. I am so tired because there are people who have ginned up all kinds of fear for clickbait. And I got accused, Medina, of providing false information about T+1. I couldn't believe it. I'm an OG. I've been here since it was T+5. This is not a big deal. I have lots of videos on it. I posted the latest, Medina. I hope the last on T+1. So you should answer T+1. T+1 is the correct answer. There is no universe in which T+2 is the correct answer on the test, right? They don't swap it out. T+2 disappears. Now, if it's offered to you, it is a distractor. That's the technical name for a wrong answer. So you should answer T+1 for any and all securities. So there's my answer to your question. I made another one video today, and the biggest change that causes is to the X date. The X date is the first date on which the stock no longer trades with the dividend attached. That's what X is, right? I made another video, Medina, called All My X's Live in Texas. About the X date, X legal, X rights. So I made a half a dozen videos on this. The day's video, I said if the record date is Thursday, my future X, Medina, is Thursday. If I buy the stock on Wednesday, trade date is when we agree to terms. Regular way settlement is the first business day after the trade date. So Thursday, seller names goes off the list, buyer's name goes on. Record date Thursday is when the company looks at the shareholder list. If I'm there, I get the dividend. So Wednesday is the last date on which I can buy the stock and receive the dividend. There's two questions about the X date. What is it? What is it? It's the first date on which the stock no longer trades with dividend. If I buy the stock Thursday, the record date, I'm not on the shareholder list. Thursday is when I agree to terms trade date, and I'm going to be an owner on Friday. So Thursday, I do not get the dividend. Thursday is the first date on which the stock no longer trades with the dividend. So the biggest change is the X date and record date are now one and the same. The X date emanates from the record date. Record and X. It's record, and that's what determines the X. Okay, so I've answered that question over and over and over again. I just answered it again for now. What is this? The 15th time I think I've answered this question, asked and answered 20 different times, 8 different videos. There is no test that you will take, no draw of the test moving forward in which T+2 is the appropriate answer. We now live in a T+1 world, and you should answer accordingly. So can't be any clearer than that. Took my second attempt, saw 0 questions. That doesn't surprise me, Lauren. I told you this is a whole ginned up thing. I'm not somebody trying to generate clickbait, but my God, all my competitors are scaring the living daylights out of people unnecessarily because they typically test questions for validity. Now, somebody has claimed they have a source at FINRA that nobody else has, which is bullshit. They don't make selective disclosures. And that's why we have non-scored questions. Non-scored questions or to be tested for validity before they count. So even if you encounter, as I just said, Lauren, you should answer T+1. But even then, I don't think it would count because they have to test it for validity. So I'm not surprised, Lauren. I literally talk to hundreds of people a week taking tests. And so I didn't get any further in this tit for tat with somebody. But I'm talking to hundreds of people. Lauren, your experience is more typical. But there are reports of people that are seeing questions. I think they're being tested for validity. I'm not going to call them liars, even though I'm tempted to call them liars. I'm not. But I've said, and I'll say it again, you should answer correctly, T+1. All right. You're welcome, Medina. You're welcome. Listen, we got to close this up here. Let's see what else we got. All right. Love it. Love it. Love it. How we end our meetings, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody here. I like that. I like that. I'm just seeing if there's any really ones I want to make sure we don't miss. Okay, so hey, Marcel, welcome, Marcel. Oh my God, what? I apologize. Today we've had close to 60 people on the live stream, which I apologize means I have not been able to get to everybody. I hope that you've been following the chat, though. I see people recommending different videos and chatting amongst yourself. So please, if I didn't get to it, join us next Tuesday or send me an email at dean@guruexamprep.com. And what we do is a giveaway. And let me go get my, whoop, that's not what I want. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Let me put that over here. Marcel, do you have any idea about what you think we should use for our word in the chat? If you win the drawing, what you get is a scholarship to one of my classes that I do in the evenings. Next one coming up is basic options. I've been thinking about adding economics. If you win, you also get free access to my office hours. Office hours are free for paid students, but if you win the drawing, you can participate for free. And so that's what you get if you win the drawing. If prices, insider info is bad. Yeah, weak form, Daniel, means that insider trading works. On weak, what doesn't work is technical. And then semi-strong, excuse me, is non-public information works, and strong as nothing works. Vegas dinner, all right. We are going to buy Marcel. I think Brian said he's in on that as well. So we'll see. So if not, I'm more than happy to buy you dinner on my own tab. I want to make sure I spell that correctly. You have to enter it just as you see it on the screen. So let me go now find the screen to share with you. And let's see, present, shared screen. Boom. And there we go. Let's make that a full shot. Let's get rid of the thing that makes you win. Remember, you got to send me an email within an hour to claim your winnings. Every once in a while, I have somebody 6 months later say, I won the drawing, and I get a coaching call. Where is my coaching call? And I say, well, you're supposed to collect that, when we offer it. All right, so we got one participant so far. Nobody else wants to participate in the drawing? Vegas dinner, what you win is access to my free office hours. That's a $225 value. You also get a scholarship into the next class, which is basic options. That's, I think I'm charging, I don't know, 30, 40 bucks for that. And we'll go through the basic option strategies is what we do there. Or I'll let you tell you what, you can pick whatever class you want. We got advanced options, whatever's there. You tell me what you want and I'll give it to you. 12, anybody else? Vegas dinner, you got to put it in the chat exactly as it reads, I'll see some of you at 6:15 in the live stream overtime session, and you can find that at deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. If you can't find it, it's because I cap it at 10, and we probably already got 10 participants. 14, last call. 15. All right, here we go. Boom. So Jason, you are the winner. So Jason, send me an email at dean@guruexamprep.com. Dean@guruexamprep.com. And what you've won is access to the free office hour. You can go register on the booking page right now if you'd like. I'm doing one Friday, and I think there's still a spot or two available, as well as tell me whatever class you would like when you look at the class schedule on the booking page. And you can find that there as well. Let me just put that up there for you. So you can go to deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. And that's where you can find all the goodies. Everything on the YouTube channel is free. On the booking page, the things that are free are the office hours and the live stream overtime. So boom, there's where you can find classes and tutoring and all that kind of stuff. All right, let me see if there's anything else that we need to get. Vegas there. Anybody else? Let's see. Did I get everybody? I think I covered most. I apologize if I didn't get you this evening. Just again, send me an email or join us next Tuesday, and I'll make sure I get to you. So remember, inch by inch. Let's put there we go. Remember, inch by inch. Your exam is a cinch, yard by yard. Your exam is hard. And I will see you next Tuesday, 5 p.m. Las Vegas time for the next installment of Ask the Series 7 Gurus. So we call this our live stream Q&A, but when it's available on the replay, it's Ask the Series 7 Guru. All right, guys. See you next Tuesday. I'll see some of you in about 5 minutes on the live stream overtime.